Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined again this week by Ruairi Walsh and Kieran Collins. Lads, how are things?
Good, Mark.
Great stuff. Fabulous weekend ahead. I suppose we'll look back at last weekend's All Ireland Under 20 hurling final between Offaly and Tipperary. We got the thoughts of the lads. We'll also look at the previews, Munster Senior Hurling Championship final, Leinster, and also the Joe McDonagh Cup final on Saturday as well. So the boys will have a few comments on that. I suppose, guys, we'll kick off with Nolan Park. It was a wash of Offaly. See now Neil Delamere was down at the match as well, skirting between Kilkenny and Offaly for the Catlass Festival. But I suppose, Rory, this is a fabulous result for Offaly underage hurling. Offaly 220, Tipperary 214. Get your thoughts?
Yeah, and fully deserved. Like, this team, as we know, have been very unlucky, particularly in that minor final a couple of years ago against the same opposition. Goal in the last seconds, really, that kind of cost them an All Ireland that day. And the fact that the team kept it together and have improved, if anything. Like we mentioned last week, how they're without Ravenhill, one of the stars of that team, Dan Ravenhill. Even Adam Screeney the last day didn't have to. He was pretty good, but by Adam Screeney standards, didn't get on as much possession as in other games, and yet he had a very good supporting cast. So this team, are not just built around one exceptional player, and he is an exceptional player, but they are way more than that. Backs were really solid. Tipperary, I just felt like never really got to grips in the middle third, and their full forward line were kind of living off scraps inside. Darren McCarthy still did a bit of damage when he got ball in. Senna Butler came into it in the second half a small bit. Oisin O'Donoghue as well. So look, they were, as we know from the Munster campaign, they were a really dangerous full forward line. But the Offaly half back line, in fairness, they were like a wall there at times, and their use of the ball was particularly good. Heads up all the time, giving the ball to a guy in a better position. There's one score in particular, where it went the whole length of the field and ended up with Egan at full forward. It went through every line in the pitch. To keep that composure with a manic crowd in Nolan Park, and just for lads at that age to, not get in the habit of just wanting to get rid of possession, to having the confidence to look up, pick out the guy. I think that score kind of symbolised the team for me and what they're all about this year.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in. I suppose get your thoughts on that 6-point win for Offaly.
I think this has probably come a year earlier for them. I think just reading comments from Leo O'Connor after the game, there's 11 of the team that finished the game underage again for next year. He mentioned in the plan after the minor final about having guys ready for 2025 physically and I suppose the condition wise. So I think they're probably a year ahead of what they've targeted themselves. Fully deserved, as Rory said. The lessons they've learned in the last two All Ireland finals they played in that minor and again against Cork last year, they've definitely learned from them. I think the hunger they've shown. I think that was probably the big difference. Look, Tipperary were not showing up to make up numbers either. And to be fair to Tipperary, they did keep them in it. They did keep them guessing at times, and they kept them, I suppose, getting the goals at periods where, Offaly were 8 points up and Tipperary got it back to 3. And, they did ask questions of Offaly, and I suppose the sign of a very good team. They started to pull back away again. I suppose great performance from Dan Burke. I think he's been huge for them this year. Barry Egan scoring 1-2 as well. Just, I won't not be surprised if these two teams end up in an All Ireland final again next year, this age group, because this Offaly, and they have been backed by the Offaly public. I think we've seen huge numbers. I think to all their games, they're getting bigger attendances than the senior team are getting all year. So I suppose the Offaly people have taken a shine to this team, and I suppose it's down to their honesty and the hard work, and they have learned from the recent mistakes or the recent finals. They're probably I think Cork last year were probably just physically bullied, definitely that second half. But I think they've learned from that. They're getting better, they're getting bigger, and I think Offaly hurling is in a good place underage at the minute with that team. But I suppose the main hope for them is to bring him along to the senior grade and I suppose try and get him back to Liam McCarthy, which will be no easy feat. It's a big jump, but when you're producing players like they have now, I suppose it makes that task a bit easier.
I suppose, Rory, get you in here. Leo O'Connor, what can you say about the man? I mean, moved from Limerick to Offaly to nurture the underage hurling development. It's been an astute appointment from Michael Duignan and the Offaly board here, hasn't it?
And one thing he will do is he'll get buy-in from the players. He'll get them to... He's a passionate man. And when you have players of that age and they believe in what you're saying and the plan you've put ahead, and even just getting the management team in place as well, I'm sure he had to get a mixture of, lads up from Offaly who he may not have known previously, and just trying to get the right lads in there. and just keeping the players on board. As Kieran said, a couple of devastating losses and it can all go pear-shaped then, but just keep them focused. And now the big step for Offaly is bringing these guys through to senior. We know from across the Shannon and Galway from Offaly, like it's no guarantee of senior success. Also, like the plaudits they're getting and deserved, like they need to keep these lads' feet in the ground as well, because a 19-year-old, 20-year-old can lose a run at themselves if they're not, especially they'll have, like they're heroes in Offaly now, but they need to realise, and I'm sure they'll be reminded by Leo and Johnny Kelly as well, that getting back to Lee McCarthy is the real aim for Offaly. Great to win All Ireland's underage, but they need to be back at the top table again. And in fairness, like Leinster probably needs an Offaly as well, and you can just see the hunger from the Offaly fans as well. It could be a danger when you're kind of, and it's been maybe 10 years like in the doldrums at senior level now, if not more. Hurling is still so strong in the Coolderries and Kennedy and Burr and all these places like that. The passion of the fans to like sell out the stadium in a couple of hours just shows the interest there in Offaly. And yeah, hopefully from their seniors' point of view that they'll all row in behind them as well, because as we know, this Joe McDonagh final is going to be Laois will be in the form team in the Joe McDonagh campaign, and it's going to take a huge effort to beat them. But I'm sure just that being a local derby as well, I'm sure Laois will turn up in numbers too, and having the senior final on after it as well is going to I think it's a good move by the GAA. And hopefully that'll live up to be a great find as well. But yeah, well done to Leo and well done to Offaly. They fully deserved it, and at times during the game, like when Tipperary countered their goal straight away with their own one, just again, I think the word was composure. They showed a composure throughout the game and kept Tipperary at arm's length. And as Kieran said, in fairness to Tipperary, they didn't die either, but they were just on the day, Offaly were the better team, and I don't think they could have any arguments with that.
Absolutely agree, Ruairi. And I suppose, Kieran, kind of looking at it from a Tipperary perspective, it's still a wonderful year for them from an under-20 perspective. Got to the Munster under-20 final, a well-fancied Cork team. I mean, that left it all out there in Nolan Park. I suppose, what players impressed you most for Tipperary who might make a jump up to senior next season?
I think for me, the standout player on the team is Darren McCarthy. He probably had his quietest day on Saturday night. It's supposed to be a name we've been talking about a lot this year, especially with the schools hurling and into this as well. But look, the future into the immediate future in underage hurling in Tipperary is strong. Very good minor team as well. And I suppose, look, combine some of that minor team with the 20 team who are still underage next year, they'll be really strong at this age group next year. And look, they're needed. I suppose that we all know the transition Tipperary are in, but for me, I think Darren McCarthy has been the standout of the team, and I think he's definitely one for the future.
Absolutely. I suppose give a plug to Foley as well from Bursa Kane. He came in, a good opening cameo, 3 points. I thought his opening scores really did keep Tipperary in it. I did like the look of O'Halloran, particularly at full-back and Curvin as well, centre-half back. I mean, Horgan obviously in goal as well made a magnificent save on Screeney in that opening half. Might be one of the saves of the year. So, I mean, from a Brendan Cummins perspective and selectors, I mean, as you say, an awful lot of these guys are underage, Rory, next season, and a lot to be hopeful for.
Yeah, and I suppose they're big rivals. You'd be hoping from a Clare point of view. Clare have been very competitive as well at this age group, and Ren Cork very close in the semi-final, and Clare would have a chunk of that team underage again next year. So it's going to be, Munster will still be very competitive. Offaly, you would think, but the problem is with only one team getting out, you slip up in a semi-final or a final, and like Kilkenny, Galway, to come out of Leinster itself is going to be tough again. So I know with 11 underage, sometimes you can nearly have expectations too high. A lot can change in a player's development as well from age 19 to 20 and so on. So if they can retain this, it'll be some achievement, but they should be thereabouts. And just the main thing, as we said, is just keeping the hunger going and trying to get these lads focused on becoming senior hurlers. But look, and you know what, we can't say enough about TG Carr here. We're praising them every week, but this under-20s championship without them this year, it would have been just like a kind of a sub-note in the newspaper, like 2 or 3 lines. But the fact they're covering the games has created the interest, and midweek having two games on nearly, a Leinster game, Munster game every week, has been great. And maybe we said this last week, maybe the under-20s can nearly be put on its own. Trying to fit it into a calendar is one thing, but maybe in July, if you had a chance to put this in, because there are no semi-finals, it could be maybe run a bit quicker. No All-Ireland semi-finals or quarter-finals, so go straight to final. So maybe even if the All-Ireland series was kind of played afterwards, it would just kind of maybe give it the space it deserves.
because there is we're getting into business end of the season now, and there could be a certain overlap with certain players, and it's a hard thing to manage for, I suppose, player time and recovery and that. So I definitely agree. I think there should be a separate slot for it, even if they'd run off to semi-finals and a final over a weekend, somewhere. But it definitely deserves the. I suppose we're looking at senior hurling where it's all tactical now, and players are playing the systems. But generally, underage hurling it's goat hurling. Some of the best games you're going to see in any year would be a 20s gamer. So I definitely agree with that. They should be making to me, it's a tick box. We got to play it off. Offaly won it, but it should be given more than that.
Mm-hmm. And I bet there's probably 8 or 9 of those Offaly boys had to be reporting into senior duty, by Monday or Tuesday. So not really even a chance for them to, to over celebrate if that was what they wanted to do there. Because I think there's at least 8 of them on the panel anyway, and a few of them are going to feature. And even getting their mind focused, it must be tough for Johnny Kelly and his management team to bring them down from that, try and, get the momentum, but also keep players focused on what they're going to face against Laois.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know they had a homecoming in Birr last night on Monday night. No, we're recording this on Tuesday. So, I mean, all credit to Offaly anyway. It's been a magnificent victory. It's been a few years coming. But, I mean, hopefully this is the catalyst and platform for bigger and better things for Offaly hurling. I think Leinster and the whole of hurling really embraced that victory for them. I suppose, guys, maybe we'll go to Joe McDonagh Cup final preview. And Michael Dignan very quickly after the final whistle, Tina G was emphasising the fact that this Joe McDonagh Cup final is huge. It's huge in terms of development of Offaly hurling further, encouraged all the parents and kids and anyone that was along in Nolan Park to come to Croke Park here, Ruairi, for Saturday afternoon, face their near neighbours, Laois. I mean, this is going to be a very hard game to call, and I suppose supporter bases might be the difference of the winning and losing of this final. What do you think?
Yeah, the closest to it in any other sport is probably the playoff final in England to get your place up in the Premier League, because just in terms of revenue, even for counties, having a round robin games in the Joe McDonagh compared to Wexford, Galway, Kilkenny coming to town and not just development of players, and that's what players want to be when they're, from the minute they come into county development squads at 13, 14 years of age, they're dreaming of playing against Kilkenny and the Galways of this world. And for Laois and Offaly, even before this kind of Offaly bunch have come along, Laois probably have had the upper hand on them underage for a few years before this present bunch. And so a lot of that Laois group now are probably 23, 24, hitting that age, and they'll have no fear of Offaly. So they getting from under 20 to senior is still a big gap. And I think, Laois will probably, even though they were being the most impressive team now, kind of a lot of the focus has been on Offaly, and they're kind of coming into this under the radar, even though they were the top seeded team, and they're going to relish kind of this position, I think. So it's all built up to be a cracking game.
Absolutely. Kieran, get you in there. Is there any relevance here to the round one Joe McDonagh Cup fixture between the two counties? I know that was in O'Moore Park, Port Laois. Offaly were leading by 5 points at half time, but Laois managed to turn around and win
2 goals to change it. Yeah,
exactly. Is there any relevance here, or is it just complete different?
There's probably an awful lot of water under the bridge since. I think the biggest thing for William Maher is there hasn't been any distractions. Offaly, there's Johnny Kelly, as Rory said earlier, to get these lads back in and get them grounded again, all within a week, is a tough ask. I think the benefit Laois have with William Maher, they've had that extra week. They had the position in the final secured probably maybe 4 weeks ago. So they've had the time to recover after a test and round robin series. They've had the time to plan. They knew who they're going to be playing, and I'm sure they've all the ducks in a row and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed coming into this. No stone left unturned. The other side of it for Offaly is, I think Offaly are sick last year. They didn't win it. I think they went about, thought they were cute in hand-picking Carlo, playing the final, and then, Carlo turned them over. And I think they're sick over that, and there has to be huge motivation over last year, carried into start this year for this year, which, the kind of two of them cancel each other out. It's so hard to call. It's of all the 3 games on this weekend, it's definitely the hardest to call. I think for me, I would probably just give it to Laois to have been performing really well. They've been putting huge scores up. I think this distraction for Offaly, while it is a welcome distraction, in the county, it is very hard. Okay, maybe they might have had 1 or 2 nights out. I know, and they're only young lads, I suppose it is easier for them, but to get them back in, get their 2 feet back on the ground and get them slotted into another team, if they can bring the crowd in, if Offaly can bring the crowd that they were bringing for these 20 games, I suppose it does go in their favour. But for me, I think just Laois, like they've had no distraction. I think they've had a perfect run in. Like they've had the 3-4 weeks to prepare, and I expect them to be fresh and ready to go.
Yeah, Rory, get you in here. I suppose Kieran has raised a great point about the last year's Joe McDonagh final and how Carlo really exposed that Offaly backline with direct ball in and goals ensued. Do you feel that this Offaly team have learned lessons defensively to get over the line this Saturday?
Yeah, like that's probably the biggest takeaway from last year's final for them is just keeping the goals out. It is what turned the game, as Kieran said, not just in the game in Portlaoise this year, but all the way back last year against Carlo. And the Carlo full forward line causing big problems inside. I think Laois are more of it, maybe a scoring threat points-wise as well. And the thing is, like a lot of teams, when they're used to playing games in tighter grounds and they come to Croke Park, it can end up being a real high-scoring games. And that's probably been the way for the last couple of Joe McDonagh finals, real shootouts. And I would say, I wouldn't be surprised if Laois are hitting 28, 29, if it's left open. So that's another thing. If Offaly are worried about, dropping a man and sealing off the goals, a bit like Waterford maybe did against Limerick, there could be a jeopardy of maybe, because Laois have some, the sharpshooters out the pitch. Like we know Paddy Purcell can chip in with points from play, Maher as well, very strong feet here, Dunphy. Like there's a lot of kind of shooters from out the field, and probably an area, that Laois need to be tight as well there and not leave that loose man outside, to hurt them from range. So it's kind of two ways of looking at it. Seal off the goal, but also don't need to lose it. Like have your shooters from Laois marked and picked out. We spoke about this even with Dublin against Galway, and yet still Donald Burke was getting into his pockets of space and crummy and really hurt Galway from distance. Laois had the potential to do that to Offaly as well, and that's something Offaly need to be aware of, I think, going into it. I think Offaly as well have their own threats at the other end, and maybe as well, like not losing the focus of hurting Laois themselves with some goals. Like the one thing I'd say about Laois, when they have come up against Lee McCarthy teams, they often can ship a lot of goals, even in league games when they've come up against them over the last couple of years. And maybe themselves, Offaly could be looking at how they could target, and maybe hurt Laois, where they were hurt themselves last year. But look, as we said, promises to be a great game, a final that, I hope the fans from Kilkenny and Dublin go in there early for it, because they won't be disappointed.
Kieran, you're tipping Laois anyway.
Yeah, I just think as well, Mark, if you're looking at the two teams and where they're coming from, like Offaly are obviously up and coming with a lot of young players. Laois have played at the top level. They played Lee McCarthy. They're not only recently demoted, and I think they probably have that little bit of experience with a bit of youth, like great young players like Ger Quinlan and added to the likes of Paddy Purcell and Mossy Keys and stuff. So I think I'll just give it to Laois. I just think they have been the form team. And look, that means nothing when it comes to a final, but I just think the preparation and everything will definitely be in their advantage. So I'm going to give it. Look, it's slight. It's a slight nod to Laois, but I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I don't think there's going to be much in it.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there. Who's going to be playing in Let's See Hurling Championship next season?
Yeah, again, I just kind of fancy Laois as well, only slightly. I think what they need to do is get off to a good start. If Offaly get that good start, maybe go up to 1-3 to a point with the momentum they're on and the crowd. They'll probably bring big support now as well, based on the win from last week. So maybe Laois need to keep that support quiet early and just get a foothold early in the game. Another problem for Johnny Kelly is team selection. Like, does he go with some of these 20s who are informed that he mightn't have had, with him for a lot of games at times, or maybe we're being kind of minded in terms of, a load of games and so on? Or does he go with guys he's seen more of? I'm sure we are going to see like a Screeney in Croke Park. Like, that's a no-brainer for me. He will get space there. But there are certain decisions that he's going to probably be a small bit of guesswork in some of the decisions they make as well. I just think Laois might be a bit more sure of exactly their best 15. I know it's probably a good problem for Johnny Kelly, because his dilemma is, do I put in guys who just have won All Ireland medals? Do I start some of these boys? Better to have them there than not. Whereas, I think from Laois' point of view, like, they definitely would have a more settled team and be more sure they're starting 15, and that might be just a small factor as well.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with you there, guys. I think preparation will be key here. There's no excuse for Laois, really. As you say, Kieran, 4 weeks out. They knew that this day was coming, so I think they've a settled side. Will Maher and his selection team definitely will have identified the matchups pretty much, knowing that full well that probably it was Offaly coming into the final. I mean, there's an awful lot of euphoria around Offaly, certainly. But I think, as you say, Rory, you raise a great point in terms of the squad rotation. Does Johnny Kelly rock the boat towards the last minute of a final and not give loyal players that may have performed in recent round robin rounds the heave ho? So I think it's an interesting game. I think this might go extra time, and if it does, I think I'm just going to give it to Laois just purely on the experience. Like I said, Dunphy, Purcell, and Stephen Maher as well have been superb. I think that might swing the balance here, but fantastic game. If it's anything like last year's final, guys, I think we're in for an absolute treat. I suppose before we leave Joe McDonagh Cup, I suppose we have to give heartiest congratulations to Kildare winning the Christie Ring. Donegal with a late goal salvo to break Mayo hearts in the Nicky Rackard and the Laurie Marr. Fermanagh too strong for Longford, but three outstanding games there, guys. So congratulations to the three counties there. I suppose, guys, might continue on the chronological sequence here. The Leinster Senior Hurling Final between Kilkenny and Dublin. Kilkenny seem to be in this final year in, year out, 5 in a row bid against a Dublin team, probably, Kieran, coming into this with good confidence, I suppose. What are you looking forward to on Saturday evening in this matchup?
Absolutely. I think, to be fair, Dublin are there on merit. I think they got probably a lucky start with securing a point in Wexford Park. But I think from there they've built on. They've beat the teams that they're expected to beat. They pushed Kilkenny very close, only for a late Cody goal to steal a win for Kilkenny. They went to Salt Hill and beat Galway at home for the first time in, can't remember how many, it was 96 or 98 or something was the last time they were beaten at home in the championship game. They're definitely going to have to take huge confidence from that. I also think with Kilkenny's form to date has been a little up and down. They've been missing a couple of players along the way. Obviously, Owen Cody's back in. Adrian Mullen was named on the bench last year versus Wexford, but he didn't feature. So with the 2-week break, you'd probably expect him to be close. Look, Kilkenny and Croke Park in finals, they're probably going to up in a couple of years from what they have been playing. But I do give this Dublin team a very good chance. They're playing with a bit of confidence now, something I suppose they wouldn't have had back in February and March. The league was probably disastrous for them in ways. But they had their own injury concerns, injury plagues at the time, without the likes of Donald Burke and Owen O'Donnell was missing for periods and the Crummies and so on. So big players to be without. I give Dublin a right chance. I think Croke Park will suit them and their game, their running game. The troubles Kilkenny in the round robin at times, and I suppose this, had Brian Hayes had a shot at goal that went wide, and had that gone in, it could have been a different game completely, but would have left Kilkenny chasing it. Kilkenny will know, they'll know Leinster final day inside out. It'll be new to a lot of this Dublin team, apart from the likes of the Sutcliffes and the Crummies. But, this is, I suppose, new heights for a lot of the Dublin team. And I think they've nothing to lose, really. I think they will be definitely confident after that Galway win and securing the Leinster final position in the manner they did. It wasn't just a 1-point win. They won it well in the end. And I give them a right chance. Kilkenny, look, they will be hard to beat, but they definitely won't fear them going up there.
Yeah, Rory, get you in here. Get your thoughts on Saturday evening's game.
Yeah, I just think as well, Kilkenny, they do Leinster finals very well. They always seem to up it a few gears when they get there. As Kieran said, we have to respect that. And though Dublin are, for me, they're the surprise team, and they have got players back from injury, but they've all slotted in, and the spine of the team now looks really strong. We spoke before if you stop Donald Burke, but the fact they're without him so long, scores have come from elsewhere now. Keane O'Callaghan inside, Danny Sutcliffe is contributing from play every game, and they're no longer as reliant on him as they were. But at the same time, I suppose Freeze are going to be a big part in it, and it will be, TJ versus Donald Burke and Freeze. So two left-handed free takers who are deadly accurate, and I presume discipline then becomes really important. The team that can hold their discipline, not concede as many frees, because they're both sharpshooters, as we know. But I just think, Kilkenny, even beating Dublin up in Parnell Park, I know Dublin had every chance to beat them, in kind of a tighter field, which is Dublin's. They've been so good there in home games in the past. The fact they didn't get over the line that day, Kilkenny, you can honestly see Croke Park as Kilkenny's home ground. Their success there, especially in Leinster, has been so good and strong over the years that you have to respect that, I think. And the likes of Owen Cody, I didn't think he was on full form in the Leinster Championship. I think the extra 2 weeks now, these boys hitting their best form, and usually Kilkenny time these things well. I just think, they're going to have a bit too much for Dublin, I see. But look, anything can happen, as we say, in a final. Early red card, anything like that, or a couple of early goals can change a game. You just don't know. But overall, on balance, I just kind of tip my hat to Kilkenny here and just give them the nod.
Yeah, Kieran, would you go with that assessment, or do you really give Dublin a genuine chance of maybe winning a first Leinster crown since 2013?
I do give them a chance. I think they have. I think more than the bookies think. Like Kilkenny are priced at 3-1 on. I think it's a little bit short for them based on the form that they've put in. Look, I know Kilkenny have the pleasure of being able to build as their round robin goes on. I suppose it's not like Munster where you're looking behind you all the time. I have no doubt come Leinster final day there'll be a different intensity and a different attitude. But I just think Dublin, just their game, I suppose with the space, it'll trouble them. Look, at the end of the day, certain things would have to go wrong for Kilkenny, maybe like as Rory said, a red card or certain injuries, and everything would have to go right for Dublin. It's very hard to beat Kilkenny. It's easier talking about it than going and doing it. Dublin have, I suppose, surprised some people. I did see something in them, definitely come, I suppose, early in the year with the players who were missing. I thought there could be something there, but I don't think anyone saw them getting to the Leinster final. But I probably will say Kilkenny they'll have the smart for it. They'll have the work rate for it. They'll need a huge increase in form on certain players. I think Tom Phelan's one of them. He's struggled in last year's form. Mullen, if he does play, is going to be coming in cold, and he's been out, the bones of 6-7 weeks. Cody obviously is getting back, and the 2 weeks will stand him. The likes of John Donnelly, 7 points one day, 1 point the next. They need these guys stepping up and doing it every day. I think defensively they're sound. They probably have their back eight sorted and named, but I suppose it's from there up. It's where the work rate, and look, if they bring that work rate, they will win the game. But if 2 or 3 of that 4 or 6 are off form, it opens the door for Dublin a bit here. But I look, as I said, Kilkenny in the final, they're a different animal, and you have to respect that, and you have to respect. Look, they're not going for 5 in a row for nothing either, and until they're beaten in a Leinster final, then you can start to maybe pick flaws in them. But yeah, I think they will be strong enough, but I think it'll be a closer game than what people might think it might be. Some people might think it might be.
I'd agree with you there, guys. I'd give the nod to Kilkenny. I think we've said repeatedly in this podcast, Kilkenny don't do panic. And I think they're kind of coming into this Leinster hurling final with plenty of scope to improve here, particularly in that middle third. I know there's been injuries. There has been some form issues here as well, but it's no better team to crank it up a notch here going into the business end of the season in Kilkenny. And they know there's a marvellous opportunity again to get in within 70 minutes of an All-Ireland hurling final if they were to advance. So I think all kind of indicators would point here. I think that Parnell Park result as well. I know Rory, Kieran, you mentioned it here. I think that was a lost opportunity for Dublin, really. If Dublin can pressurise this middle third, if they can get a run game going here defensively, Carlo did show in that drawing game down in Netwatch Cullen Park, particularly in the final quarter when questions were asked of this Kilkenny defensive shape. It did disintegrate. So, there is hope here for Dublin, but look, you'd be a brave man to really back against Kilkenny, not securing 5 in a row here, but you can be damn sure that Micheál O'Donoghue and Franny Ford will be devising a game plan very similar to what they did against Galway in Salt Hill. They're well capable of hurling men, and maybe this is exactly the foil that they want. They want Kilkenny to be very warm favourites and them to come in and ambush. But I think, rest assured, I think Saturday in Croke Park, if you're anywhere near Croke Park, I think 2 quality games on offer here, and well worth the admission fee. Those guys will then move on to Sunday, 4 p.m, Thurles, Semple Stadium. The 2 protagonists in the Munster Provincial Hurling finals of recent years go head-to-head again. Rory and Kieran, Clare and Limerick. I suppose, Rory, get your viewpoint from a Clare standpoint. What's the mood in Clare like heading into the final?
Be honest now, Rory. None of this fucking watery shite.
Well, news from the camp is so hard to get, but from what I'm hearing is they're going to have more players of their starting players available than at any stage so far. Ryan Taylor has a few weeks of full training behind him. Apparently he was training even the week before a tip game, but obviously coming back from such a long-term injury. So I don't know what the story is. Is he able to be risked here? Maybe off the bench, he'd be a great player to bring in, add a bit more work rate to the half-forward line. I find sometimes David Fitzgerald, for all his brilliance on the ball, doesn't offer as much off it. When you look at the likes of John Donnelly, who we mentioned it from Kilkenny earlier, maybe he's been showing clips of Donnelly and so on over the last few weeks, or even Ryan Taylor from last year is something that would definitely boost the Clare team, having Ryan Taylor there. Tony Kelly, as Lohan himself said, is available for a selection from the start. I did think that by the time we got to the end of the round robin, he would be back, to starting berth. I think we all did. So it's kind of been slower than expected. And news also seems to be good on David McInerney, which would be a massive plus because Hegarty can cause huge problems, and David McInerney has done reasonably well in him. In fact, the mistake in Ennis was that he didn't follow. He wasn't asked to follow Hegarty when Hegarty was switched over and kind of into the stand side in the second half, and he came into his own in the last 10 minutes, Hegarty. So I think not having David McInerney there, I'd be a bit worried about. Dermot Ryan, who can be loose and likes to get forward himself, having to man mark, or Keane Galvin if he's starting instead of David McInerney. It's his debut season, marking a player of Hegarty's experience. So there's probably some of the subplots. If Clare can get these boys back in the pitch, I think it really gives them a better chance, just in terms of having a bit more confidence in the matchups and so on. So yeah, look, after all the talk of how competitive Munster was, and it has been, it's just gas that the last 3 years have produced the same two finalists, and sometimes games come down to the last second, or umpires guessing, as Davy Fitz would say, and so on. But yet it's ended up with the same two teams for the last 3 years. And I just think, from a Clare point of view, if they have ambitions of winning the All Ireland, I think winning this game, just for the sake of the break it gives you, and not going into a due battle against a Wexford team who are on the up, and it just becomes a really difficult route again. Now, saying that, if Dublin shot Kilkenny on Saturday evening, they might be looking at a route of Wexford and Dublin as being a bit more to an All-Ireland final. Whichever team loses the Munster final might be saying it's probably less fraught with danger than having Kilkenny and Cork, which would be what the Munster winners would face. Look, it's all to play for, really, in terms of not like both teams coming into it pretty confident, I'd say, in their own way, the way Limerick finished off their round-robin game. I think Clare haven't hit full form yet, in terms of we've seen patches of it in games. Limerick probably have put two big performances, or two home games in particular, whereas Clare have been patchy throughout, and you're just hoping that it all comes together. Like, you wouldn't mind that if we can produce a big performance in the Munster final. So yeah, it's an intriguing one, and I just feel maybe it could be my heart speaking here, but I just think not even third time lucky, but surely the experience and just the fact the panel has been strengthening all along, in terms of, like, Mark Rogers wasn't there 2 years ago, Adam Hogan, these guys, coming in, kind of even the likes of Conor Lean, just strengthening the options off the bench. I just think we're in a better place than we have been for the previous two finals. And so because of that, I'm going to give us a tentative nod here. But again, with Limerick, like, to beat, as they've been christened, the Green Monster now, possibly if they go on and win 5 in a row, they'll be the most successful hurling team of all time. And I'm sure Clare would see themselves as having an opportunity of spoiling that. So, and on that grounds, like, there's plenty of motivation for them.
Kieran, get you in here. From a Limerick perspective, I suppose, what are you looking out for on Sunday, heading into this final?
Rory's talking about Clare's form being patchy. I think you can say similar for Limerick. I suppose if you run through the games quickly, like starting off with the Clare game, it's the starts for the games that I suppose I've been worrying, letting Clare into a 9-point lead. Okay, clawing it back. Same in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like Cork were all over them in that first half. Now, look, you can look at it two ways, I suppose, that they did have the fight back in them and they got back into that game and possibly should have seen it out. I think definitely in the Waterford game, Waterford were in that game longer than they should have been. Look, Limerick did see it out in the end, but, I suppose sometimes you get away with these things, and other games you might get away with them, and that's the worry, is that if Clare do put that 70-minute performance together, they're going to be really hard to beat. I suppose both teams they're not coming into the game with perfect records or perfect, there's definitely stuff to work on in the last 2 weeks. I suppose for Limerick, Rory's talking about Clare injuries, it's going to be the same. Will Sean Finn be ready? Will Darragh Dunham be ready? I think he's huge, to have any aspirations going into later in the season. I suppose Shamie Flanagan going off the last day, really doubtful he'd start. Who comes in? Does Adam English play? Does Sean O'Brien play? Or Shane O'Brien play? There's definitely big selection calls to be made, and Limerick's point of view was, for me, the form of Gillane this year to date has been poor. He's gone up against, probably, when they say touch-tight defending, you won't get any tighter than Conor Cleary. That's the battle we've seen over the last few years, and it's probably another one that's going to happen on Sunday. And I think Gillane needs to get to better that one for Limerick to have any chance of winning. I think we look back this time last year, Limerick got to the Munster final probably on Gillane's performances, but this year he hasn't shown that form. Probably flawless on frees, but in play, if Flanagan doesn't play as well, and with Peter Casey gone, like, he's going to have to step up a bit more for me and carry the mantle. We're expecting young guys to come in and try and make that impact, which is it's not an easy thing to do. For me, I agree. McInerney has done a very good job on Hegarty. I think the biggest question this year is with Hegarty kind of spending a little bit of time in the full forward line. I suppose the question for Clare comes, does McInerney follow, or do one of the full back line pick him up? I suppose these are in-game decisions that have to be made. Both teams, I think they know each other so well. They've played each other so many times the last couple of years. Will there be a curveball from either management that, I suppose, you keep for big days like this? It remains to be seen. Like the last 3 finals and the games, the round robin games, there's probably been a puckle of a ball between them, and I expect nothing else on Sunday. I think a full house is going to be huge atmosphere, as always. I suppose the fear is the Clare, if they keep coming and keep throwing darts, they'll stick one day, and they will get the result, and so it's this is Munster Championship, this is the biggest day of them all, and I suppose as we mentioned with Kilkenny earlier, you get the win and you're 70 minutes away from an All Ireland final, and with that 3-4 week break you get with it, so it's definitely the best route to go. I expect nothing but a mammoth battle again on Sunday. I suppose may the best team win.
Absolutely. I suppose, guys, get your heads on the block here. Rory, you're tipping Clare, I assume, from that preview.
Here, look, it's time to tip them. I think
he's changed his mind again now, is he?
No, just what I find very interesting about it is the complete different structures they have, especially defensively. Like Limerick like to hold their 6 backs in positions. Clare will be trying to exploit that by having, your O'Donnell. Kelly, if he starts, has been very good at just getting in between the lines against Limerick in the past. And Limerick they never set out a man marker for Kelly. It's kind of, if he goes into your zone, you pick him up. And I think Clare will be trying to exploit that, whereas the Clare back line are the opposite. They follow man to man. Even the last day against Waterford, where Mikey Kiley went out to wing forward, Conor Cleary followed him out there for a chunk. So Limerick will be trying to drag the Clare back line all over the place, which kind of happened in the last 10 minutes when Clare lost their shape in the round robin game. Limerick will be trying to do that from the start, I think. Get players in the back line kind of in sections of the defence they're not comfortable. So there'll be an element. John Conlon is the only man really that holds fully. Like we even see Dermot Ryan charging forward into the opposition 21 at times. This is without the ball, so there's a lot more structure to what Limerick do. But again, the man-to-man, it's just the fact that both teams be trying to exploit different systems. I find, very interesting in it. And whichever team does it the best and creates the most space for their forwards are probably the team that will, come out on top. Like both teams have been shooting wayward. Probably a crime Clare have been guilty of more over the years. Limerick have, uncharacteristically, I suppose, been very low percentage, especially against Waterford. And I'm sure that's something that will be rectified on Sunday. And I just feel as this could be the best of all of the games so far. It's just building up that way for me. I think the fact both teams haven't fired on all cylinders yet means that both could hit top form on Sunday. And the whole question of injuries and the whole lot does come into it as well. I just feel, just that bit happier where Clare are. I know, like the likes of Cathal Malone and Dermot Ryan started to show. I thought they'd been off form, started to come into it the last couple of games, especially against Tipperary. Dermot Ryan started to look a bit more like himself. From a Limerick point of view, I suppose Dermot Burns had his best game in the last round robin match as well. So, and that was an area teams were exploiting from the very start, with Duggan up in Ennis the first day and Harnedy down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So Clare probably will have to try and go at that again on long puckouts, target that wing and see what joy they get off it early on. Overall, it's really hard to predict this one. Bookies nearly have Clare at 3-1, 5-2 at a 4-point head start. I just think that is a bit generous, considering there's never more than a puck of the ball between them. But I'm going to say it one more time. I think Clare are going to win this one, and I'm going to go with, again, just a puck of the ball. I'll go with 2 points.
Okay, good stuff, Rory. Kieran, get your tip for Sunday.
They say the bookie's never wrong, so let's hope that's true. I think Limerick are going to win, and until they're beaten, they're going to be favourites, and rightly so. Like what they've done over the last couple of years is just unbelievable. Grew up in a time where, you'd be happy to see Limerick win a Munster final, not to mind win All Ireland's, and for this team to done it, they owe the Limerick people or county nothing really. They've been unbelievable, and I just love to see them go. Okay, look, I know there'll still be more days outside of Munster final, but for them to see them win, I'd love to see them win the 5 in a row just to cement their place in history. And it doesn't matter if they don't win it. I think they probably are still the best teams to ever play the game. But until they're beaten, they have to be respected. And look, they have gone through years where they haven't played 1 year with a full squad, and through the whole year, it's definitely the business end. They've done it without big players. It'll be no different on Sunday. They're going to go into that game without big players. Look, Peter Casey, obviously Shamie Flanagan, obviously still doubts on Darragh Donovan and Sean Finn. I haven't heard if they're going to be featured or not. It's times we've gone very light in the ground, but I suppose it's the mantra of John Kiley. I suppose he said his next man in, and to be fair, that has been the way. But like these two teams, like they've served up some classic performances the last couple of years. Just think back to the last one in Ennis, Tony Kelly's sideline, and that you're here lads giving out about the price of a ticket, 35 or 45 euro, whatever it is, like, but it's worth it, once you're walking out of the Munster final, like, it's worth every penny. I'm just going to tip Limerick. I think both teams do know each other, and they'll be trying different things and trying similar things, but it's on, Limerick have this attitude which they're never beaten, and it's some attitude to have, and obviously a lot of work has gone in, psychologically to get them this way. But listening to an interview with Hegarty after the Clare game in round robin, where like they were 8 points down at half time, and for him to say that we weren't panicked, we were creating chances and we were happy with where we were, like, it's a fair statement to make. 8 points down against a very good hurling team, but to back themselves in that position to get back into the game and win it, that's mental steel to me. And look, Clare will come, they'll throw the kitchen sink, but I still think Limerick will come out on top, and it will be the bare minimum. It will be the 1 or 2 points again, but I go in reverse to Ruairi. I say Limerick by 2.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do see extra time written all over this, though. I think both teams will have as good as they get during those first and second half. I'm just intrigued by the Limerick middle third here, and particularly any of the young players coming through. Colin Neal has been so prominent this year. I mean, I think he's dual, particularly with the likes of a Cathal Malone, could be very decisive at the final whistle here. I'm thinking of the types of Shane O'Brien, who came in for the Waterford game. Huge pressure on him, and comes in and produces a performance like that. Really good. I mean, O'Dowlig, would Adam English be, maybe the curveball in here, where you maybe throw Gearóid Hegarty in full forward to maybe be that cohesive unit alongside Gillan. I think there's so many subplots here, particularly on the team selection here from Limerick, particularly, and maybe from Clare if Tony Kelly was to start from the start. But yeah, I think for me, until you beat the champion, they have to be given the dip here, and I think maybe 1-2 points here. But I'm just hoping it's all to do with the hurling here, and nothing really got to do with any controversial decision. I remember last year we were talking for a good 10 minutes about that final play in the Gaelic grounds, particularly Ruairi. So look, as long as the result is pretty conclusive come the end of it.
And we also spoke about Cullum Lyons after the Ireland semi-final, which was me again. No, you're right though. Let's hope the talking points are about the players.
It wouldn't be like Clare lads picking up referees, would it, Mark?
Well,
You're still giving out about 65 from 2019.
Yeah,
that's true. I know. Look, no. In fairness, though, like we want the talking points to be the players. Officiating has been getting a lot of headlines this year.
Too many headlines.
Yeah.
Too many headlines, and let's hope that Cullum Lyons doesn't even feature. Like, that's the best sign of a referee, is when you don't even notice them there.
Yeah.
And they blow a free, that's a free. They get the big calls right, basically, and that's where his team are going to come in. I hope he's got new umpires since today in Ennis. But I think the players here need to be the headlines on Monday morning, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, no, I think both teams will throw the shackles off here, guys. I think particularly on the Saturday night game, if there was a Dublin win here, particularly Leinster hurling final-wise, it throws a cat among the pigeons here. I mean, from an All-Ireland series perspective, do you really want to be going through a trapdoor here? Preliminary, quarter-final, or semi-final? I think both teams will be going all out for it. I think this is going to be a savage game, and again, a fitting end to the Munster Senior Hurling Championship.
But I just want to try to jump in, Mark. Just want to knock off these Cork lads, claiming that Limerick or Clare are trying to avoid them in a potential semi-final. They're fairly jumping ahead of themselves, really, aren't they? They scraped into it, and now they've won before it's even a ball poked in the an Ireland series. So I don't think either team is going to fear any team left in either side.
Kieran, I think it's a great way to have them. I think let them. I actually read a good article in the McAvoy in the Examiner, and he was basically saying like that Cork are the only team he can see beating Limerick because they do things a bit differently. And I don't know, I just don't know. I think maybe they've lost the run of themselves slightly below, because it's going to be playing like they better not write off Dublin or maybe a Kilkenny who they could be playing. It's a dangerous one for them, because they could easily get caught here, and they need to keep their feet in the ground and eyes focused on the next game and not be thinking of who they're playing and who the Munster winners are, because if they take their eye off the ball, they could be in trouble.
But I just think, definitely for Limerick point of view, I think you add Clare to it as well. they haven't gone or tried looking for easy routes or throw games to play a potentially easy route. Like they go and play, whoever's in front of them on the day. And
I think the break is worth having, that 4-week break.
That's the main advantage. That's the main advantage to winning Munster or winning provincial. But like there's this narrative out there that the losing team has thrown the game. I don't believe a word of effort. Like a Munster title, like Clare definitely want to win a Munster title, and I no doubt Limerick want to go and do the 6 in a row. So it's
none of the Clare players have a Munster medal.
Yeah.
In 2013, like it went through the back door. So
like 1998 is a long time for Clare not to win in Munster, and Tony Kelly has always said it in interviews. Munster final, getting a Munster senior hurling final medal, really would be up there with the All Ireland wins that he's achieved. So I mean, look, I think both teams look at it. It's a healthy rivalry between Limerick and Clare. I mean, look at all the relationships, and even Shannon and Limerick and colleges and stuff like that. It just goes on and on and on. So look, may the best team win on Sunday. Suppose, guys, before we leave here, Ruairi and Kieran, the minor championship, we haven't really mentioned much about it in recent weeks, but during Bank Holiday weekend, we had 2 games on tap, one Galway and Dublin, and also Clare with Wexford. I suppose, Ruairi, probably get your thoughts probably on the Clare win over a gutsy Wexford outfit.
Yeah, and this Wexford team completely dismantled Cork in the preliminary quarter-final, so Clare were very wary of them. And from the very start, Clare kind of got ahead, and it was a very low-scoring first half. A lot of frees involved, a very fussy referee. And look, the other thing was he was fussy both ways, is all you can say, but didn't really let the game flow as such. But Harry Doherty, wing forward for Clare, he's like I was going to say a mini Peter Duggan, only he's nearly the size of him. So very strong in the air, and Clare just kept targeting him on puck-outs. He kept winning them, and it just proved sometimes the simplest route is the best route. And we spoke before about, an underage over coaching players and into systems and the whole lot, but just puck the ball down into the big wing forward and things can happen, So as it proved, and Clare kind of stretched away for a finish and proved worthy winners. Again, we've said this from the start, like Clare's talisman going into this championship, Mark O'Brien, suffered an unfortunate knee injury against Limerick, and they've been, doing all this without him. And a bit like Offaly, like it's kind of last year's team were meant to be, the team that won the All Ireland, and coming on after a team that's won the All Ireland with a very big changeover of players. Often you don't follow it up. It's good that they are following it up, for another year, and just the experience now getting to this stage as well. And on a side note as well with this, wouldn't it be great as a curtain raiser to have that Clare Kilkenny semi-final on before the Munster final? This thing of 17-year-olds are too young to play in front of big crowds. Like you just saw the under 20 game the other night, and ask the players, they'd love to be playing that in front of the whole occasion that's going to be a Munster final, rather than we saw the poor crowd that was in Thurles for the both games, both minor games. So look, that's just another point. But just impressed with Clare. Wexford have done well in it. Like as I mentioned, the beating that they gave Cork, and I just think Thurles kind of suited Clare. Were more familiar with the venue and kind of fell into their path in a way. And look, they'd be delighted now to be in the Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there, being based in Wexford. I suppose being immense pride on this minor hurling run. It's ended, but I mean, a couple of players here that have really caught the eye.
Yeah, I think Sean O'Brien is probably one of them. It was their talisman all through. They started the year very well. They took Galway, give them an awful hiding in Wexford Park. The same day, actually, was on the very curtain raiser to the Wexford Galway, senior game. Didn't do them boys any harm either that day, so it can be done, and it was done. That was the way it was done before. I suppose to be fair, I don't think many people would have given them a chance going up against Cork and the players they've thrown out the last couple of years. But and I suppose it was only the last 20 minutes that Clare started to pull away. It probably has been. It's been a good year. There has one or two players. Definitely, Sean O'Brien is the pick of them. And I think for Dublin as well, going up against Galway, I saw that Galway team that day when they played Wexford, and they were really, really impressive. And I suppose it shows the work that's going on in Dublin underage. Their 20s team only beaten by Offaly, like who are now the All Ireland winners. They only beat them by was it 2 or 3 points at the end. And then I suppose this minor team get within 3 points of Galway. So there's a lot of work going on in Dublin. I suppose Micheál Dunne, who is obviously looking at this down the track, and he's what I suppose Dublin are on a bit of a high at the minute, and with these young players coming, like they could be a force in the coming years. And
they had a dreadful start, Dublin. They went down like 1-4 to a point, and so they were coming from 6 points down early in the game, and even to bring it back at one stage to 2 points was the closest they got. But Galway, I thought, were impressive. I just thought they were the better team throughout, just kind of a bit crisper. But still, like Dublin, to show good fight in it and bring it down the line. As Kieran said, like they're following up, like the positivity coming from the senior camp is there's foundations there as well now with 20s and minors. And you just hope that any guy who's a dual player here chooses the right way in Dublin now and sticks with the come on and the slitter, you know, because they've lost too many underage guys to football.
This is not the catalyst for, you know, the underage hurling development here in Dublin. What can be, I mean, very admirable performance against a very highly rated Galway team here. And I mean, the semi-finals are going to be mouth-watering here, guys like Kilkenny versus Clare, and obviously you have Tipperary against Galway. Geez, local derby game there as well, so no love lost there. So look, we'll probably have a review of that next week, guys. I suppose we'll leave it there. Good episode tonight, guys. Many thanks for your time, Kieran and Ruairi. I suppose next week we'll review all the finals, the winners and the losers. I suppose hopefully we'll be in talking terms this time next week. Yeah,
we won't mention Column Lines next week.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, we'll review anyway Joe McDonagh Cup, Leinster Hurling Senior Championship, Munster Senior Hurling Championship, and also have a look at these minor games as well leading into the semi-finals. I suppose, guys, until next weekend, thanks very much, and we'll chat later.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.